All right, so real quick, just to address what I'll surely see in the comments, I'm on location right now in Boston at my parents' house, so I'm not in Command Center 2.0, so apologies for the different look, for the lack of video and audio quality on my end, but let us say hello once again to the former UFC heavyweight champion, Frank Mir, who stepped into the boxing ring this past Saturday. He took on a former two-time cruiserweight world champion in Steve Cunningham, and he went the distance with him on the Triller Fight Club car, which is something he should be incredibly proud of. Frank Mir, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and actually I thought the fight was 4-2. I had it 56-54, or excuse me, 58-56 when I was walking in the corner. And I was like, well, maybe one of the rounds I kind of stole at the end because I landed that good shot at the end of the third. So I'm thinking, maybe one went my way and I got this to a draw. And then when they started announcing the scores of 60-54, I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Really? Not one round? I mean, I know it's boxing versus MMA, but be fair.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought it was a little bit closer than the scorecards indicated, but congratulations, man. I know it's not typical to congratulate somebody after a loss, but I feel in this case, it's completely warranted. How does this experience all feel a few days later?
You know, it's been a great experience. You know, obviously my stock has gone up more in this loss than most of my victories. And I think that's because really, honestly, people are really appreciative of the journey. They realize the battle that, that I went out there and fought, what I put on the line. Obviously, they can see how hard I've been working to go ahead and go out there and do this on a technical side, on a nutrition side, on a lifting side. And so, I think that's actually probably is a good trend. There was a lot of things that happened that night that I think are bad examples to our children. And I think that at least that people can appreciate that going out there and being a warrior, regardless of the results, is something that we can admire in our culture. And I'm very proud to represent that and help guide other people to go and say, hey, look, man, it's not always about winning and losing. Sometimes it's about how you play the game and how you fight and how you show up. And those are things that are within our control. So I feel like that takes stress off of people to go, hey, just go out there and perform as well as you can and let the chips fall where they may. And, and look at my situation that I'm at.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. So I'm curious, when you say that there are certain things that happened that weren't great examples for the children, what do you mean specifically?
Well, I get that it was also a concert, and there's a certain element to the concert, genre that, that maybe would make a lot of parents of their, 11 and 15-year-old kids uncomfortable. I never have felt uncomfortable bringing my children to a fight, and my kids go to concerts all the time. But the atmosphere and kind of how that especially, the pundits, whatever you want to call them, the power, the hosts were basically behaving, the atmosphere they would have set if that had been a sold out arena, I don't think I'd be comfortable having my children there, to say the least, as far as, hey, look, I'm not anti-drugs at all as far as weed, all the more power to you. Personally, it's not my cup of tea, but that's just because it makes me lazy and I want to just eat and sleep. And I already have the urges to do that. But I have no urge with other people. I think it should completely be legal. I'm very pro marijuana, but I don't know, just everybody being high on a show, drinking and hanging out and partying. I'm just like, that's a little too much, guys. You know what I mean? I think there has to be certain people have a certain character that we completely get and understand, like Snoop Dogg. I get it. That's him. That's who he is. And, if you hire Snoop Dogg and you expect something else, you're the idiot. You know what I mean? And he brings a huge fan base and he's the cool guy. But as far as like some of the other guys that should have been brought on, and I don't really blame Triller for that. They brought Al Bernstein on to be a legitimate boxing host. They brought on De La Hoya to be a legitimate guy. Obviously you can't control in what shape he showed up. But I still wonder how come the producer listening in, watching us doesn't go, hey, man, let's go and let him know that he's having a rough night. We're going to cut it short. We're going to get him out of here because, he's embarrassing us. He's embarrassing himself. And he's just not he's upsetting a lot of people. I mean, if you're sitting there with your phone, you can see that it almost overshadowed my fight that I'm having as MMA versus boxing in a boxing match. And now the topic became how awful and what the hell is Oscar on?
Yeah, it's funny because I talked to Ray Flores, who is one of the play-by-play guys, about that situation. He said basically like, listen, Oscar's not fighting for 2 months. He was having fun, so I kind of let him go. And, maybe in hindsight, he regrets that. But is it true?
Yeah, no, because there still have to be a professionalism to show up. I mean,
right.
Hey, you want to cut loose and let go. There's people that have met me out when I'm out after a fight. I have a couple drinks. I've commentated shows. And afterwards, if you see me in a bar, I'm having a beer. I'm smoking a cigar. That's when it's time to play. I think that was a bad example to show children that you don't play while you're supposed to be working. I mean, we can all have fun while we're at work. I enjoy my job and I commentate. You know, people could hear me in the past for ACB, you know, when I'm being commentating with Brian Lacey. We were making jokes, having fun. But as far as cracking out the champagne before the show's over with, no, you don't party before it's done. Like, get your work done, be a professional, and then, hey, cut loose and enjoy yourself.
So I'm curious because one of my colleagues was there covering the card, and he said he could hear the commentary throughout the surround sound speakers in the arena. Could you hear his commentary while you were fighting?
I did. And it was distracting to me a little bit. I was more upset when they were talking shit about Cunningham. You know, like now, you know, first he's going to murder me. And I expected the first round or two. But then as I'm listening to them talk about Cunningham, it's like, wait a minute. You guys aren't giving me credit for what I'm doing. You're just trying to say that he's no good, that this guy is a chump. Like, to me, it was just such a loser mentality on how to commentate the fight that I'm like, really? I would expect more from somebody who's been in here at the highest levels. So that was upsetting. And then the other thing is that in the judges, they got to own up on that. Really, not one round you gave me because you were listening to the commentary and it was being piped in and it influenced the judges. One of the judges, I think, had it the most correct when he had us, again, the 58-56 score, you know, 4 rounds to 2, you know. But as far as it was a shutout, 6 rounds, I didn't win a single round, like that I didn't agree with. And I felt that was completely on the commentators. Well, it's not their fault that they're influencing the judges should not be influenced by that. They need to channel out and just focus on the fight itself. But that's what happened.
When we last spoke, you talked about like the challenges that it was getting into the boxing and you were starting to enjoy it. So I'm curious, like what was more difficult, like the training, the build up to the fight itself, the preparation, or kind of the in-fight mentality where, you know, it's not MMA, it's boxing. You can't just go in there and shoot for takedowns, things like that. Like what was more difficult for you?
That actually was. It was funny because, you know, you train hard when you're sparring in the gym, but it's never 100%. There's never that I am trying to completely put this guy to sleep. And obviously that trigger gets pulled during the fight. So it put me in an elevated state of mind. And then I found out that I was battling myself. Not on the outside as far as my jab, my cross. A lot of those things are extremely similar to what I do in MMA. And I was using the same boxing I would use in an MMA fight. I didn't really specialize to be a boxer. I was being an MMA fighter using my MMA skills that were legal. But then when I got inside, I thought it would be easy to shut that off. And it wasn't. And it made it me a little bit slower on the inside.
All good.
Sorry, you guys see me?
I did. Oh,
there we go.
There we go.
So anyway, so that was a battle. Every time I was inside, not holding the back of his head when I threw punches, not digging an overhook, turning and throwing shots. Even so, not so much as not trying to throw a knee or an elbow, which I accidentally think I threw one over. They were like, but and not kicking. But just my brain seeing it and identifying them, having to constantly say, no, don't do that. No, can't do that. Stop. Because the one thing about the state of Georgia, the athletic commission, the rule on the books is if I get disqualified by a foul, so if I foul my opponent, and it could be unintentional as far as, let's say I step behind his leg and I throw a punch and I sweep him. Well, he blows his knee, fights over with it. That's deemed a foul. I lose my whole purse. And I just knew that would be a difficult conversation to have with the wife. So that distracted me a little bit during the fight. Maybe after a few more boxing matches, I can clear my mind of that. Because I don't typically have that much of an issue in jiu-jitsu and when I wrestle, not to hit people. But boxing is just, you know, very similar to fighting as far as this type of intensity of hitting each other. And I was definitely struggling not to do MMA.
Did you kind of fall in love with it? Because it sounds like you want to do it some more.
Well, I think it's definitely something that made me, even today I was sparring at Syndicate, and now this is the first time I got to spar with kicks and takedowns all together. And right off the bat, I mean, my legs felt a little fatigued from throwing kicks, but I threw a lot of high volume to get kind of break the ice again. But as far as the improvement, my hands are so much better right now that helped build me as a martial artist. So, of course, I'm going to continue to do boxing matches. And actually, I'm going to add in, I would like to do some kickboxing matches because I think those will also relate very well to MMA.
You said one of the most important reasons you took this opportunity was that you wanted to make your children proud. And I know your daughter, Bella, was in your corner. You wanted to make her proud, and you wanted her to say that she was proud of you when you left the squared circle after a job well done. What did she say to you? What was your family's reaction after the fight itself?
Oh, they were ecstatic. They were very much like, wow, Dad, my wife even said, she goes, honestly, Frank, I was like, just don't get knocked down the first round. Don't get knocked down the first round. And then the second round hits and she says, oh my God, you made it into the second round. And then every round she just got more excited. And then she was just almost ready to, she just started crying for me. She's all, baby, you did it. You said you wanted to go out there and show that you could box with a world champion, and you're in the heat of what you love. She sees how much I sacrifice. And so my wife's in there crying, going like, he's doing it. He's living his life right now.
What have you made? I mean, because being in MMA so long, the MMA fans, the MMA community, it's almost like the hardest group to please and get positive feedback from. But you've gotten a lot of praise, a lot of props, as the kids say. How has that made you feel?
It feels good. Obviously being recognized as somebody that can represent the martial arts community, because I'm an MMA fighter. A lot of times some people get that confused. They call me a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm like, guys, I've done well in jiu-jitsu, but I'm as much as a jiu-jitsu guy now as I'm a boxer, right? I wouldn't start calling myself a professional boxer, even though technically I am. MMA is my love, and that's what I really want to push up to the forefront and represent. And so the fact that I took on this role and represented mixed martial arts for a second time in my life, where I was the guy versus, the MMA guy, holding our honor, I'm glad that I was able to represent, and especially, obviously, I was disappointed with what happened to Askren. But had we gone 0-2 that night, as far as I know, I still lost, but I feel like at least we put a win in the MMA market for me, for what I was able to do to help pull the weight for the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an MMA fan, obviously the main event, it was an unfortunate ending. But I remember that the last conversation we had, you said you had a lot of respect for what Jake Paul has been doing. He's been taking it seriously, and he goes out and stops Ben Askren in under 2 minutes. What did you think of it overall?
Yeah, actually, I was impressed with. Look, Jake Paul, and Logan Paul, they've made their name by being controversial and putting out different videos in their marketing. My cup of tea? No, it's not my style. But you know what? I realize that there's lots of different people in the world. There's all different kinds of styles. And there's different pizza for everybody, right? And so, but the one thing that I can say about, them is that they train hard. He shows up to the gym. He puts the work in. He does what his coaches. I'm friends with BJ Flores. The guy does whatever he asks him to do. He goes, hey, we got to wait today. We're going for a run. We're going for a run. I'm going to have you spar these 2 pros, 3 rounds each. He does it. And so that in itself is a good example to the rest of the guys. Like, hey, he's jumping in there and boxing, and he might not have taken the most conventional route, but he's paying his dues. He's fighting and training hard. He's bleeding. He's sweating. I have nothing but love and respect for that.
Would you compete on another Triller card like this again?
Yeah, there's a few things that I would like them to make some adjustments on that I think just needs to be brought to their attention. Obviously, they have Melissa Henricks, who's phenomenal on the fight side. Their matchmaker Peter was phenomenal to work with. So a lot of the people had all the best of intentions, but this was a crazy monster that no one had ever been a part of. I mean, so you have, production down there that's responsible for the music video or whatever, the music industry aspect of it. You have the commentators and what they're doing with the celebrities. Then you have the fight production trying to go on. And all these guys are trying to intermingle and work together. I mean, at one point I was impressed it actually went off, just because I've never seen so many moving parts. And so are there some hiccups? Absolutely. I would like the show to be able to be watched a little bit more of a general audience. I feel that they hit their market audience, but I'm also a little disappointed that I feel like, and not from, a lot of it has to do with what Oscar did. But I mean, I think it was a little too excessive with the weed and everything else and the drinking and the partying. And it's like, hey, you know what, you're alienating a lot of our mainstream America right now. Let's kind of, maybe tone it down a little bit. Let's have flavor to this, but we don't have to be it to where, as a parent, I'm feeling uncomfortable if my kids are watching this.
I know you were originally supposed to fight Antonio Tarver. Is there a part of you that was kind of bummed you didn't get that opportunity, or is it almost better that you got to fight Steve Cunningham, who a lot of people figured was a tougher matchup for you?
Oh, Steve was absolutely at this point in his career a tougher matchup. I feel like Tarver was a much more winnable prospect for me than Cunningham. But that being said, I mean, Tarver has a much more of a household name. Look, he has wins over Roy Jones Jr. He's a light heavyweight champ of the world. Even as an amateur, he was a world champion in '96, and he was also in movies. I mean, he got to do the movie role, a pretty major role in Rocky VI, which I really loved that movie. It was awesome. And as far as name value, it was huge, but Triller brought so many eyes on it that it kind of made up for the fact that I didn't have that superstar marquee name. And I think Cunningham was a phenomenal dance partner. He's now somebody that now I've exchanged information with him. Like next time I'm getting close to a boxing match, I would love to be able to go out there and spar with him and pick his brain and use him as somebody to help set me up as far as make me a better boxer.
So I know you just fought on Saturday, and in MMA, we let you savor the flavor for very little time before we ask what's next. But do you kind of have an idea? Like, I know you signed with BKFC last year. Do you think your next fight will be with them? Like, how do you kind of see this next step going in terms of your competition?
Yeah, it's either BKFC or actually Malky might have something going here in June. I don't want to let too much out. I don't know how much he doesn't want to talk about, but possibly a fight in Florida where I would really love to be able to fight because, my father's from Cuba. I have a lot of extended family there in Florida. And so I would like to be able to go there and possibly do an MMA match next or BKFC match with the bare knuckle, which if I do the bare knuckle, I'm honestly really interested in showcasing against a high level boxer. So that way I can also show that, hey, look, if we're both on our stand-up hands, if you let me go ahead and hit from the clinch, this isn't going to be as close as it was in our boxing match.
Will you watch UFC 261 on Saturday?
Of course, yeah. I keep up with all the fights. I do the best I can.
There you go. Thoughts on the main event? On the main event between Usman and Masvidal, is there any? Can you see this fight going any differently than the first time? I know they got full camps now, but do you see this fight going any differently?
Yeah, I think that Usman's a monster. That guy is phenomenal, and right now I had to put money on. Fight war to him. He's somebody who's very underrated. So the guy's grappling is able to be good enough to hopefully he can stay off Usman and make this a stand-up war, which Usman's awesome at too. Great switch stancing, cutting different levels. But I think it's going to be still a hard fight for Masvidal to be much closer, and I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls it off.
Frank, I appreciate the time, man. I know you're getting ready to go train again because you're a wild man, but I think I speak for pretty much everybody in the MMA community, in the media space. We tip the proverbial cap to you, sir, for your showing on Saturday. Well done. I know you wanted to go in there and get the victory, but this is a victory in itself. So congratulations again. Thank you for the time, and all the best to you. Congratulations to Bella as well.
You got a second, Mike?
Sure.
Hey, kids, he was asking, did I win? Did you guys, did I earn your pride? Yes. We're all training together, hanging out as a family, and they say they're proud of me, so we're good. I won.
That's better than any win in itself, man.
Better than any amount of money or anything else. Yes.
By the way, did I see Bella added to the trophy case? Is that accurate?
As far as
wrestling, didn't she win?
Bella did. She did. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I hadn't spoke to you about that yet. I mean, I've done interviews on it. Bella became the national champ here 2 weekends ago. Was it 3 weekends ago? So she won nationals, which was a phenomenal match. I couldn't have written it better. I'm like, Bella, when they make a movie about your life, this scene is going to make people cry. Because here she goes out there. She's going to get her head wrapped up. She's more established as a wrestler. Has won things longer than Bella has. She goes out there and they give her a takedown at the beginning, which I've watched a couple times. I think it was a takedown. But so she's on bottom. The girl saw that the shoulder was taped and was smart. She went after Bella and was able to turn her twice. Bella basically spent the first period not getting pinned, as the clock ran out. And then, so we're down 8-0. Bella gets up. McGregor, her wrestling coach, fired her up, talked to her about what needed to be done. I calmed her back down. When she looked over at me, I was like, hey, just start over, man. Just, reset. And she went out there, picked top, which people that know wrestling knows you normally don't do that. And she went out there and stuck her in 30 seconds. And the girl was a legitimately tough girl. So, I mean, to do what she did to win the way she did, it had me. I went in the locker room and cried for Lou, so I didn't embarrass her.
Amazing. Congratulations to her. Congratulations to you, Frank. I appreciate the time and enjoy the training, my man.
Thank you so much. All right, man.